I would like to move on to my delegated duty, that is towards taking the last session of this internship program. So, just as introduce me, I'm the convener for the LJRFCenter for Women and Child. So, in this session, I would like to briefly introduce all of you to the activities of a center, as well as the need for such a center to carry out various activities with special emphasis on women and children. So, the first question is: isn't this 2023? Why do we have the need for a separate center for women and children? Aren't all of us equal? So, I would like to illustrate that with a few instances which require our particular attention, and why such reforms or why such emphasis on women and children is the need of the hour. So firstly, women and children are at heightened risk in cases of gender specific violences, and we know right now we have wars happening at various places across the globe. So in each of these cases, women and children face very particular instances of violences or due to their gender and vulnerability. And further, in India, we can see that women and women face very much difficulties with respect to inheritance of properties, then issue of sexual violences, gender-based violences, domestic violence, and the others. So on that note, I would like to start an introduction about the center. I have a PPT and will be sharing it. Kindly let me know if it's visible for the Center for Women and Children. So firstly, we have considered why we need special laws and consideration for women and children. And now concerning our Indian Constitution, we have Article 15, where the Constitution itself provides for consideration for maintaining special laws with respect to women and children, which emphasizes the importance of such laws. So without further ado, I would like to move on to the next topic. POSH Act. We know that women and children face many difficulties with respect to multiple areas. So our center would like to presently focus on one particular aspect which is being under-acknowledged by the various strata of the society, and which is very much relevant. So this is the sexual harassment at workplace, which is effectively addressed by the Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act of 2013. This is very concerning since women, the participation of women in workforce is a very strong indicator of the economic strength of country. So right now, I would like to take a moment to bring all of you to the website, to our website of LJRF Voice, so that I can have a brief summary of the act and proceedings. I would request all of you to pay particular attention to this session, because the POSH Act is one of our important areas of research, and this session would be a very useful one for to get a brief summary of the act in a nutshell. So firstly, how did this act, or how did this act come into existence? So in India, before 1997, there's no formal guidelines for how an incident involving sexual harassment at workplace should be dealt by employer. So if a woman was facing sexual harassment at the workplace, they had to lodge a complaint under the section 354 of the IPC that dealt with criminal assault of women to outrage women's modesty, and 509 that punishes an individual or individuals for using a word, a gesture, or an act intent to insult the modesty of a woman. So what the problem with these sessions was that these sessions left the interpretation of outraging a woman's modesty to the discretion of the police officer. So now what happened was, in 1990s, the Rajasthan state government employee Banwari Devi tried to prevent a child marriage as a part of her duties as a worker of the Women Development Program. And in retaliation for her, with respect to Banwari Devi, what happened was she was an employee of the state government with the Women Development Cell, and as part of her duties, she prevented many child marriages. So what happened was, the upper caste landlords of Rajasthan, they raped her in retaliation for her activities. And this led to a landmark case termed as a Vishaga case, which paved way for the creation of the POSH Act 2013. So in this case, the Supreme Court laid down a set of guidelines which popularly came to be known as a Vaishaga guidelines, which effectively paved way for the POSH Act of 2013. So if we check now, we can clearly see that the POSH Act is heavily based upon the Vishaga guideline. So now you can see our article at the LJRF Voice. So firstly, let's see the summary of the provisions of the Act. So as we know, the first chapter of the Act is obviously consisting of a preliminary as well as an inclusive, not yet exclusive definition, list of definitions. So we can identify who an aggrieved woman is, what is a workplace, what is harassment. So all of this is contained in the first chapter. Now, the second chapter. The second chapter mandates the employer to constitute an internal complaints committee. So, all of us, before that, I would like this to be an interactive session. So, can all of you just please text me in the chat box whether you have heard of the term internal complaints committee? The interns, it would be very useful if all of you could respond to the chat box, because the term internal complaints committee is one of the most essential features of the POSH Act. So the Act mandates for the creation of an internal complaints committee in institutions where there are at least 10 women employees. So on that note, you can see, yeah, okay. So on that note, you can see we can move to the next few chapters. Now we have chapter 5, which is chapter 3. It calls for a local complaints committee. So sometimes there exists a situation wherein there might not be sufficient internal women employees in an establishment. We have small shops where there might be just 1 or 2 employees. So if they are having such a redressal or such an issue, we can call for the constitution of a local complaints committee. Now we have the chapter 5, which deals with the inquiry of complaints. So if a complaint is filed, how is it to be dealt? What are the interim measures to be allowed? And all the likes. So now that is with respect to the inquiry of committee. Then we have chapter 6, which holds the employer duty bound to provide safe working conditions, organize workshops and hold awareness. And now we have chapter 7 and chapter 8, which details the duty of the district officer. And the Act ends with chapter 8 with the miscellaneous provisions. So we can see that it is a very short act consisting of 8 chapters, which call for the creation of an ICC, the inquiry, procedure, and the interim measures. So I would like to move on to the existing part of my presentation. Now, with respect to our activities. So what do we as a center act? We aim to bring about awareness and conduct research and execute activism in this sphere of women and children, especially regarding to the POSH Act. Now, our one of our major activity, which occurred last year, was that we had conducted a panel discussion on sexual harassment of workplace act in coordination with the Kerala State Legal Services Authority in association with the Government Law College Ernakulam. So here we had a comprehensive discussion on the POSH Act with various stakeholders, including those from the Women's Commission, the Police Department, and other academia. So we had a comprehensive discussion on what are the important aspects of sexual harassment that we need to cover. So now we have various questions. So what constitutes a workplace? Now we can raise a question. Is a school, can a school come as a part of of a workplace? The answer is yes. The Calcutta High Court had given out in a verdict that school children are eligible to file a complaint under the POSH Act. Now, is a political party a workplace? No. The political party cannot be established as a workplace because there is no worker-employee relationship there. So now we have such sort of complications arising out of the POSH Act. And now we have another question. Will the POSH complaint under the POSH Act be maintainable when the complainant is a woman and the complaint is against a woman? The answer is yes, of course. Gender is not a matter of concern with respect to POSH Act. Either of the genders can be accused of the provisions under the POSH Act. So these are the new concepts that are arising under the POSH Act, and we need to be in line to follow the latest decisions. Now moving on, you can see that these are our latest publications in the LJRF voice. So we are following a very system where we track the records under the POSH Act so that we can arrive at a conclusion with respect to the trend in the country. So now we can see the victim compensation part, the position of Supreme Court with respect to POSH Act, the analysis of Vishaka and others with the state of Rajasthan, then the POSH rules. So POSH rules means when an act comes into existence, we have a set of rules which provides for its procedural aspects. So that we have the POSH rules along the POSH Act. And then we have an article on the maiden initiative of the Supreme Court to compete the stereotypical languages used. So all of these are an analysis of our understanding the trends. So now, what are our immediate short-term activities that we plan? So first, of course, is a short courses on the POSH Act. so that we can spread proper awareness on the various provisions of POSH Act and enable law students and other stakeholders to be properly educated in that and spread the awareness henceforth. Now, the second objective is to ensure awareness and collaborate with various institutions and organizations across the states, such as the KELS for seminars and presentations. So, on this note, I would like to highlight a survey that we had undertaken recently. So, we had a survey regarding the awareness of the POSH Act, and it was an overwhelmingly informative one because majority of the people were not aware of the provisions under the POSH Act, or whether they had an ICC in existence at their workplace, or what is an ICC, or who constitutes the ICC. So we intend to undertake more such collaborations to ensure the awareness and collection of data. Now, the another aspect is to analyze all judgments which pertain to the POSH Act and create a detailed repository for the same. So now, as I said earlier, the Supreme Court has been giving more and more directions. So recently, on November 9th, the Supreme Court had refused the plea to make sexual harassment regulations gender neutral. So on that note, we have to remember that the POSH Act is applicable only to women. That is, only a woman can file a complaint against the POSH Act. So under the changing gender norm situations, we can expect, or we may or may not expect, a case wherein there might be issues, or there might be demands to include men, transgenders, or any other gender persons who identify by a different gender identity under the purview of the POSH Act. So we have a whole new lot of procedures. Then we have a system wherein the government, the Delhi High Court had held that the victim can invoke POSH Act when sexually harassed by a man working in a department other than her own. So it does not mean that the man who has harassed you is working in the same department. They might be working in a different department in the same firm and all the likes. So we plan to create a repository for a detailed analysis of all judgments right from 2013 to 2023, which has been made concerning the POSH Act. And finally, is to ensure good quality content regarding women's rights in general and POSH right in specific. So that